So, Luke, you actually wanted to discuss the Flash film. You
Right.
actually caught that. I actually caught it too. I caught a little bit of it myself.
Yeah,
So let me hear your take on the Flash film.
yeah.
Let's go and discuss the new Flash movie.
Because we talked about like what's it going to mean now because of all of the controversy surrounding it, all the hype the studios
Women can't
for
be
it.
Superman.
Women
Right.
can't
Yeah.
be Superman, um, which is funny because a non-binary person is technically the Flash. So,
Yeah.
which
Right.
I truly think most people don't remember that Ezra Miller identifies as non-binary. Um, which I guess honestly, that's probably why, and I think that's probably nobody would care one way because I think nobody knows enough about all of their various crimes to have cared. But I was curious what was going to happen here. What was going to, at the end of the day, was this worth it for Warner Brothers? All of the controversy surrounding all of the sort of the dragging, kicking and screaming they had to do with this movie in terms of their promotion. So we know it got mixed reviews, broad strokes. We know it did not do as well as it was predicted to have done in the box
Mm.
office. It'll probably be a slow march to get its money back, but it might do that still. It's still a very long summer. If I had to ask, it's like, was this all worth it? Was all of the controversy, all of the gnashing of teeth, uh, the sense that Warner Brothers doesn't care when when their talent commits like really really bad crimes? Uh, was it worth it? I don't think it was. It's an okay
Interesting.
movie. It's a
Y-
decent time
Hmm.
travel flick,
mhm.
uh, but it's a very inferior superhero movie, and deeply and even more so now because of Spider Verse. Across the Spider Verse was one of the best superhero movies ever made, one of the best multiverse movies ever made, and across the board in terms of spectacle, in terms of humor, in terms of fan service, of like just Easter eggs and cameos. Across the Spider Verse wipes the floor with the Flash in all that regard. It is visually pretty gross looking. Uh,
Really? You think so, huh?
yeah, the
Hmm.
CGI is so bad. It's ridiculous. And even the scenes
Warner
that might be
Brothers.
cool, like in the beginning where he's like running so fast and super, like it's very blah, and I didn't care. The irony, of course, is that I actually thought Ezra Miller was one of the stronger parts of the movie. Them basically playing off each other as an older and a younger version of Flash. That was actually a really great dynamic. I thought their arcs were actually really good. Um, and maybe the finale could have been kind of there. I can see where they were going with it. I wasn't a fan of it, but I liked how it all built up to the end to all that. Um, Michael Keaton was great as Batman. Absolutely, I would say. Unfortunately, his best like moments were already in the trailer. He was on the whole okay, but I don't think they did much with him. Um, is this a good Flashpoint movie? No, not really. Uh,
They substituted great writing for just decent writing.
Decent writing. Yeah, I
Hmm.
think. Yeah, and so I'm curious. I think this is a good. I think this is with this and Black Adam and Shazam 2. Uh, it could be. I think it is an evidence of superhero fatigue, but I think more so. I think it is an evidence of how much a successful shared universe concept really pulls through movies. Because I think all three were particularly mediocre, but I don't think they were any more mediocre than Marvel movies. However, the difference
So interesting. I agree
is
with you
that
100%. Keep
is
going.
that I think what the reason why the mediocre Marvel movies keep pushing through is because people are still invested in the shared universe. They still like, well, I don't want to miss this in case I miss something.
Right.
With DC, we know for a fact they're resetting it. We know that these movies are functionally irrelevant to like any larger plot. So like we're not going to get anything else. We're donezo. We're not seeing that anything else. Uh, I'm not a fan of that particular viewing style, but I think that's my observation for what's going on. Um, So the Ezra Miller thing, that was already controversial. There was one other controversy, and were you familiar with this?
No, actually, I was just going to ask you, what's the controversy with Ezra Miller? I don't pay attention to this kind of stuff. I just pay attention
Ezra
to movies.
Miller.
What did he do?
So a couple things. So first off, he choked out a woman once.
Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty bad.
While he was in Hawaii, he had like 3 separate accounts of assaulting people, just like attacking people at restaurants, assaulting them. He broke into an elderly couple's house and just tried to steal. Just because he could. They could.
Doing it.
And then there is some evidence that he might have like tried to groom someone, and then like groomed them until they were of age, and then took them and their kids to a compound in West Virginia filled with like drugs and illegal guns. So it's a pretty wild series of crimes, and it was like whatever.
God, I hate this part. I'm gonna bring this up again while we have time. I'm sure Steve kind of knows where I'm gonna go with this. I get so tired of when actors play into the whole conspiracy of like the Eyes Wide Shut, that everyone's doing nefarious things, grooming people, having orgies, all this, and it's just like then they go and do shit like this, and it's just like,
it's like, hey, what's going on there?
It's like, really, dude. You make this you make this anecdotal for everybody here on this when you do this kind of shit. It's just like Armie Hammer, with him wanting to eat his girlfriend, and that shit blew up in his fucking face.
Yeah.
Although, the allegations against him, they say weren't really true.
Yeah.
But I don't believe it. I think he really did want
to. Good PR team. That's all that is.
So there was one other controversy about Flash. And it's not a huge spoiler, but at like the end of the movie, like because of the timelines, they get like a whole thing about like the multiverse, and it is kind of like Flashpoint, in which like they're showing you that there's this big multiverse. We gotta keep the timeline safe. Blah 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 blah. And the timeline kind of and the multiverse kind of shows you these glimpses of other superhero world, and so they show you the George Reeves Superman. It's kind of in itself because he killed himself. And then you see kind of like a clip of like the Adam West Batman. There's even a scene of like Superman as Nicolas Cage's Superman, but like a scene.
Oh my God, really? Because that's a big Easter egg
for
fans. Yeah, because for those of you who don't know, Nicolas Cage was actually going to play Superman at one point in time.
Right.
But there's a great story about the whole thing.
Good God.
and more specifically,
I'm Superman.
They do a shot of Christopher Reeve's Superman. And it's like very CGI. It looks more like a highlight clip, but it is kind of like creepy,
What's the point of that?
If
to let you know that Warner Brothers is important and they hold the key to DC history.
Not only that, like they're because it's like they're kind of showing it like suggesting that maybe we're seeing Christopher Reeve Superman now. So like fully, so it's like it's when I heard about it, I was like, oh, that's super gross. Like that's gross, especially with all the deep fake stuff. It's like you're gonna just take this extremely iconic Superman that we all know.
Yes.
Who very tragically got paralyzed,
right?
And was very self-conscious about that whole thing. And passed away. Yeah, but also those are the 3 shots. They showed the George Reeves, they showed the Christopher Reeves, the Adam West, a CGI Nick Cage, and then I think they also had like a random CGI Flash, like an old school looking Flash, and I think like. Those were your big Easter eggs. Those were the things that show the multiverse. So like show the fans go like, oh, look at that, isn't that cool? That's that. It's like, really, like you're DC. Like of all the fucking shit you could show, of all of the of all of the different versions of the DC superheroes, of all of the other properties, of like
you got that.
You show the things that are like. Really only old people care about.
Yeah. From what I've seen of it, I will say this. And I think maybe it's because you're more mean than me. Because I thought the CGI was particularly bad. I did. I thought when he was running up the building to save the babies, I thought that was so kind of on the nose, but plus it was so.
It was just so. It was so corny too.
It was corny.
Cool.
Yeah,
super corny.
I thought what they did do good was they actually demonstrated how the Flash's powers work pretty well.
Great. Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
Showing Flash's powers was really cool. I thought that was a good aspect.
Although I thought it was also kind of funny because in the cartoon, when Flash runs, it's like super fast because he can grab things like this. In this, though, it was weird because as he's running fast, he's like,
he's slow when he's running fast.
That was a funny setup when the other Flash loses his powers and he does the run. He tries to run. Like that was a genuinely great piece of physical comedy, and I was like, wow, Ezra, that's really good. It was. Again, it is a shame that Ezra Miller is probably the best part of the Flash. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's a good thing that the Flash is the best part of the Flash movie. I was worried that it was going to be totally overtaken by Michael Keaton's Batman, but
right, I thought so too.
He was appropriately and adequately there as a supporting role.
I thought though too, and maybe it's because the bar is set so low for DC. So forgive me if I'm wrong here. I thought though the interactions in which they did have the characters actually flow together made sense. It wasn't like Batman versus Superman where all of a sudden the Flash shows up in a goddamn store. Like in the beginning, Flash is doing his thing and he's calling Bruce Wayne and he's like, "I'm busy, dude." And I'm like, that's DC, man. That's how it works. That's how they operate, And then the Flash is like, "All right, I'll go help him."
It worked really, It all flowed. It all clicked together.
Wonder Woman saving them. I thought that was a good piece of comedy with the last love trip.
Yeah, I also think the Kara El as Superwoman, that was pretty solid. I thought she was good. I do still think though that it should have been Thomas Wayne and and skinny Superman.
Right, I think so too.
I think that just would have made more sense.
And I don't know. Maybe this is me. And Warner Brothers, hear me out here. Like, let me direct the next film because if I really had this opportunity, because at this point, as a DC fan, I'm really, really losing hope that you guys could put anything together that's remotely good. And you keep throwing away these great scripts in the animated film. The Flashpoint Paradox script and the movie is so goddamn good. I was really hoping to see like all these different cameos of all these different different villains. Lex Luthor here and there, cameos of Lex Luthor. People, it just wasn't.
They sort of all condensed it into Zod because
they did. They really Zod was the big ripple effect, guy. And it was like Zod. Come on, man. I mean, Zod.
Yeah, I really wish they had done it would have been better if there were multiple
Brainiac
all colliding together. Though I was like, I think they didn't lead into the dark bleakness of it because the Flashpoint, basically at the end of it, Thomas Wayne is like, "Oh, this world is doomed. You guys just got to go back to save everybody else."
Yeah, run.
It was just kind of at the end of it because we spent so much time. The whole point is that Flash is trying to save that world, and then he's like, fuck it, we can't do anything. It feels like a waste, basically.
Right.
Because the whole point is we're trying to save this world. No, we can't save it. And again, I got to go back to Across the Spider-Verse. That movie was all about how oh no, canon events aren't it was pushing back against the idea of canon events. It's you can always change your fate. There's always a chance. There's always an ability.
But that's what I liked about the Flashpoint Paradox. And I'm talking about the anime film. I think one of the greatest parts about it is the fact that the Flash is the only guy who can't have that happiness. You said exactly. He went back in time where his mom was still alive in the movie, and then that world is doomed. He's the only guy that can't have that happy ending. That to me is a better story and a better reflection of a character that makes that sacrifice of I have to go back to that time that I don't have anything at all because that's what I have to do to save this world, to save that world, and this one.
To save that world, and then look at the tragedy over again.
Knowing
that
relive that again. It's like if someone said, "Hey, Superman," well, actually, there is an animated episode. Remember the episode in Justice League? I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's an episode where it's Mongol. He puts like this plant on Superman, and basically Superman is in a perpetual dream in which Krypton never exploded. His dad never died. He has Van-El, which is his son. He's married to I can't. He's not married to Lois Lane. He's married to the other girl. But the whole point is, though, there's a moment where he's like, basically things are happening in this world with earthquakes, and this world is collapsing, and he literally has to sit there and tell his son like that. He's like, I've loved you since the day you were born, but I don't think you're real. And it's like that is so much more of a compelling story for tragedy, and that's DC.
That's exact. I think you both are nailing it, Luke. You nailed it, and Rob, you just like hammered it home. Like DC, what makes it different than Marvel? For people who don't know, DC stands for Detective Comics from Batman, because that was the darker story, more bleak than Marvel. Marvel's more of like upbeat and like finding yourself as an adult and whatever. And DC is about the gritty nature of what it's really like being, a superhero. And the whole thing about the Paradox storyline is there are no winners. Like,
no, that's what's
Bruce
great
Wayne.
About that
Bruce Wayne gets a note that he really didn't want or need, and he reads it, and it messes him up probably even further because he cries. Remember, that was like a cool thing, is Bruce Wayne cries. And the Flash, who is always the jovial, the guy, like, you know what I mean, on the Justice League show and his own comics, he's like the comic relief, like in the film. But I mean, if he's the one who's experiencing the most tragedy, going back, seeing a world that is so screwed up, his mother's alive, knowing that he can't save her, so he can live in a world that he can actually be a part of and save, is more like intriguing. So I agree with Luke and you. It's like maybe they should have focused more on like I don't even know, like they could have done like bits and pieces. Why not just have, instead of Michael Keaton, Thomas Wayne, just that, like some random guy be him, because you already had
it should have been Thomas Wayne, like, but they wanted Michael Keaton back. They wanted Michael Keaton as the Batman. Cool. It was what got me in there.
Yeah, right. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back, our audience. All right, let's go ahead and move into that news you had, Steve. And welcome back, everybody. We just got done having our, I would say, a pretty in-depth discussion about The Flash. Overall, though, let's give that movie a rating. Luke, what would you give The Flash out of 10? A Real Sharks rating.
That's about a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. I'd actually give it that, too. A high 6, but a 6.